Hi friends, and welcome to chapter 2 of the mini-series where I have been sharing with you my own experiences in my spiritual journey towards a much more awakened state of being. And in chapter number 1, I start sharing with you what is a spiritual awakening and how was my first spiritual breakthrough 7 years ago. And in this chapter 2, I'm going to talk all about the ego and the false self. So if you're interested about these topics, just stay tuned. The ego is one of the most trendy topics to talk about in spirituality. In simple terms, the ego means your self-concept. Anything that involves I, me, or mine is part of your ego. And the ego causes you to make choices according to what others perceive about you and how you perceive yourself. And this prevents you to connect with your true self. We as human beings, as social beings as we are, we grew up in societies and in families because we depend on each other to survive. And the situation with this is that this surviving, it's gonna depend completely in the approval of others. What we do in order to be approved? Well, we have to adapt to the tendencies and programming of the societies and families we are living in and raised by. The more we start growing up and the passing of the years, we start being more disconnected with our own intuition and our own true self, and we start more connected to this tendency and programming of society, peer groups, school, religion, friends, and family. And all of these start developing in us a false self, and a self that is more conditioning to this big programming and tendencies of large groups. And the thing with this is that it's really important because this programming is what is going to teach us a lot about what is right and what is wrong. And just to give you some examples of what are just programming of societies or religions of family is, in some societies, the women can uncover their shoulders just because there's no problem in that. Where there are other societies that a woman that has shoulders uncovered, it's a sin. So imagine what it is, the big difference between right and wrong in a situation like that. Therefore, the concept of being good or bad is going to depend mostly on a morality of the place you grew up in, making this concept of being right or wrong completely subjective. This is really important because you have to understand that the ego in you, in order to survive, it needs to be proved that he is good. Why? Because goodness is our natural essence, is the natural state of the human being. So the ego is always 100% defending and justifying why it is good or it is right. And therefore, the other person or group is wrong or it is bad. And the problem with this is that all of these decisions and actions we are taking every day, we are doing it from a subconscious mind, meaning that we are not fully aware that we are doing it. And that is why enlightened people says that there is always good intentions behind every action, even if our actions are not the best ones. So let me explain you so you can understand these concepts a little bit better. Let's say, for example, that an employee made a mistake and the boss come to the employee and start yelling a lot to that employee because of his mistake. What the boss, probably his intention and justified in his inside through that aggression, is saying that that is the way that the employee is gonna learn and is gonna avoid future mistakes. Another common example can be a parent that is criticizing everything that the children is doing. In the parent's mind, it can be thinking that that is the way that he is or she is showing them the discipline that they need in order to be raised as better human beings. Another example can be the husband cheating on his wife with the justification of that he needs that break from reality in order to release his physical stress. Another example in a much more bigger way can be those persons that believe truly that they need to go to war and create more killing in the world just because they need to defend their own country. Or even a terrorist can feel like a hero, killing hundreds of people and dying with honor, just believing that he's doing something good for his country. So actually, every fight, every war that has been in this planet until today, it has always a justification of I am good or I am right and you are wrong and you are bad. So there's always a proof of the ego trying to defend and justify why you are correct, why you are the good one, why you are the good guy. And the problem with living with an unaware ego is, besides all of the suffering you're causing for yourself and everybody around you, is mostly because this is the number one barrier against your own personal growth. That means that is a barrier for you taking responsibility on yourself and to see what is wrong in your own perspective and what is bad inside yourself. And you are not being able to see your own shadow. If you cannot see your own errors, wrong, and darkness, it's impossible for you to grow. It's impossible for you to change. It's impossible for you to change something if you're not even seeing it. By creating spaces for awareness where you can put yourself in the position of other people's perspective and in the position of I might be wrong and or why I can be bad in certain situation and exploring all of those choices, you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to change. And the suffering cycle is going to be present every time because you're going to be always classifying everybody else's as bad or wrong. So the world is going to continue to be hostile for you. You want it or not. And the only way that you can embrace your darkness is by passing through the uncomfortable, really uncomfortable and painful moments of opening space towards the possibility of your wrongness. And I know because I have passed it through it. My biggest moment where I had to realize that I was having a tremendous ego that was causing me a lot of suffering for me and others was after the dissolution of my marriage. When I got a divorce 4 years ago, I had to look myself into the mirror and I have to see all of the things that I was wrong and all of the things that I was doing bad. And believe me, it was so much. There were so many things that I wasn't doing correctly, and I caused so much unnecessary suffering for myself and for others that it was really painful to see that, like myself into the mirror. but it was the only opportunity that I could actually have to see what I needed to change. Right now, I can see that thanks to that period of time that I could see all of the errors that I was making, I could change them, I could fix them. And today, I'm a much better partner because of looking myself in the mirror and because I was bold and brave enough to change them. But it's not easy, it's really uncomfortable, and the ego doesn't like it. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of awareness and a lot of work. But believe me, your world is going to change the minute that you step on a position of, I might be wrong. And well, my dear friends, to finalize this video, I want to share with you 5 ways that we can check if we are just being in an unaware ego position. Number 1 is to check on your labels. Labels is everything that you can say, like I am a vegan, I am a yogi, I am a woman. Every time that you're saying I am fill in the blank, you are identifying with an ego. You're putting yourself in a box with characteristics. And it's nothing wrong to say I am X. You know, it's the way that we survive in this world. The problem with putting yourself in a label is that if you are inside the box, you're a good person. But if you're outside, you can be mean or bad. So one example of this is if you say I am a vegan because you love animals, perfect. But if you say I'm a vegan and everyone that eat meat is evil, that is that you were operating from an unaware position of the ego. Second way is check yourself if you're living too much in the past or in the future. One example of this is like you have a partner, you can say to him or to her some critic about what happened 3 days ago or 1 week ago or 1 year ago. That is your unaware ego that is just defending themselves and putting yourself as good and the other person as bad. And that is going to cause suffering. And a good example of the future can be the typical thing that you're assuming something about somebody that has not even happened yet. I know we all do that. The way number 3 is checking if you are not being able to resolve a problem with somebody. If you've seen that you're not able to advance in the resolving of a situation, probably is because your ego is pretty strong and pretty unaware. And just remember that the reality you're seeing through your filter, through your eyes, is your reality, is not the reality of the other person. And your reality is going to depend on the programming of where you raised in. So each one of us has its own reality. If you're not advancing in the resolution of a problem, just check in if you need to put yourself in a position of being wrong, at least for a while. The 4th way is to check if you're running into arguments or discussions all the time. So trust me, if you think that you're always right and everybody's wrong, that is your ego talking. The 5th way is to check if you are fearful. Remember that the ego is fear-based. The ego is always being fearful of not be loved, not be worth it, or not be accepted. We're always trying to have approval of others. So check on yourself if you're not trusting people, because if you are in that position of not be trustworthy, it's your ego that is taking over. And with that, my friends, we've finished today's video. I hope that you like it. Please leave any comments about it. Ego is one of my favorite topics. I have been working a lot on it. I know that I still have lots more to work on. I can see clearly how every single day my ego tries to take over. Sometimes I can spot it right away. Sometimes I get into that insane matrix where the ego is the one who's dominating. But that's the beautiful part of this spiritual journey, that is never ending, and it's just day-to-day work. So leave in the comments below any experience that you have been having on how to spot your ego in an effective way. I would love to learn. And share if you want the video, and please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of my other chapters of this mini series. But for now, I send you lots of love. Take good care. Bye.